Kung Gen Z ako, si Kadodo Alpha. Magandang umaga, Senador. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning. Ayun nga, siyempre pagka tinext ka ni Doc Anton, lundag ka kagad kahit saan, di ba? So maraming salamat, Doc, for inviting and for being present with, people who are really, I'll share later, people that give me so much hope. Give me so much hope for the future. Talagang future na iniisip, medyo may boarding pass na kami ni Tito Leps, nasa pre-departure area. No, but thank you very much again. So, magkukodigo lang ako kasi I will have to confess, hanggang kanina nagpapalit ako ng slides. And sorry for the organizers for being late in my submission of my deck. No? Short deck naman, short deck. So the topic that was asked of me to talk about was, but first, empathy. No? Of course, medyo nakakalula yung word, because for me, empathy is something that I continue to learn as even up to now in this late stage of my life. Empathy is something that I still need to learn to do more, to do better. No? But let me just explain that a little bit more in this short presentation. Siguro, what I'll try to do is I'll just share my story. I'll share my journey of hope story, which I when I was doing the deck over the weekend, sabi ko, how should I tackle the topic and the subject matter? And parang ayun nga, sabi ko, maybe I should just share, my journey of hope. How hope, in a way, became present in my life, and consequently, how it continues to be part of my life. No? So let me begin by looking at three phases. No? And this is, this for me is these are my phases. Might be different from yours, but for me, it's the discovery of these different phases to sort of deepen my own understanding of what hope means to me, as a person. So let me begin. The three phases: giving hope, finding hope, and sustaining hope. Of course, inspired din naman ako nung tagline ng Hope Summit, no, yung sustaining hope and empowering generations. And that's why I felt the last part is very important, yung sustaining hope, no. So let me tackle the first one, yung giving hope. Sige, next slide please. So giving hope, for me started siguro latter part of high school and probably the entire time of college. It was about that was around the time of martial law. That was around the time that there was a lot of political uncertainty. And again, Tito Leps was one of the forefront activists. Nasa kalye na yan, nasa high school pa lang ako. Kaya kung gusto niyo, kung edad lang pinag-uusapan, si Tito Leps mas matagal na. So anyway, I guess it was realization nga, as I mentioned here, that you discover a broken world where you realize the cards that have been dealt with for you is so well. I mean, mas maganda yung baraha ko. Moving forward. And when you see that, and parang when you begin to realize, parang bakit ako maswerte sa iba? Or parang ba't ako bigyan ng pagkakataon pumasok sa Ateneo to have a very comfortable life. And then it was during high school where we started, of course, these Jesuits, they have their way of trying to brainwash you in all of these things. So it was, I think, around fourth year high school where we were asked to be part of this program called Tulong Dunong program, where we actually once a week would go to a public school in Marikina to teach our younger brothers and sisters in the public school in Malanday Elementary School, if I remember correctly. That's where that exposure sort of really just gave me this whole sense na, ayun nga, this whole Ateneo na stand on a hill type of thing, di ba? I mean, can you go to the next slide? So for me, hindi ako yan, mas mukhang si Josh yan kaysa ako. Kasi hindi ko nakaya yung mga backpack na yan. But basically, this is the image that sort of represented the whole idea that studying in Ateneo, and then, di ba, in our alma mater, you stand from a hill, and then it goes down to the second paragraph of down to the hill, down to the world go I. When I was singing that, or that was we usually sing that in our graduation. When I was singing that this alma mater in fourth year college, parang ayun nga, ang tanong mo sa'yo, gagraduate ka na, anong gagawin mo? Anong susunod na gagawin mo? And that was around 1985. Yes, that's 40 years ago. And para medyo mas maliit naman, that was 4 decades ago when I graduated. And I asked the question, what do you do now? What do you do now, having gone through, Ateneo from prep all the way to college? What do you do now? And of course, at that time, 85, that was prior to the snap elections. No? That was the snap. And in fact, 1985 November, if I'm not mistaken, was the time snap elections were called, where President Marcos called for snap elections, and that's when eventually led to the decision, former President Cory deciding to take on the challenge of the candidacy of President Marcos. No? So that was my parang anong gagawin ko ba sa buhay ko pagkatapos doon. And so, I decided, sabi ko, that of course, EDSA happened, and of course, President Cory became president. And alam mo naman, dito sa pamilya na to, off-limit sa mga kamag-anak sa gobyerno. And sa totoo lang naman, kakagraduate ko pa lang naman sa college, so wala naman akong qualification para sumama sa gobyerno. But nga, it gave me that very rare opportunity to actually take a step back, fresh out of college. What can I do? I decided to join an NGO. And that was, of course, based on an inspiration also of our keynote speaker, the late Ambassador Benny Tan, who was then, I think, chair of PBSP, a Philippine Business for Social Progress. And he was challenging all of us graduates, ayun nga, this whole down from the hill thing. What are you going to do to be relevant to your country and not just to yourselves, di ba? Given the kind of gifts, skills, knowledge that you've gained in Ateneo, what are you going to do with it? So it was from there, and then that I decided, sige, why don't I just spend some time doing NGO work? The family business can wait in a future date. Yung parang babad na muna. Kasi nga, ayun nga, as I said earlier, I just discovered the broken world, and I felt I needed to give back, even as early as that time. So ganun yung parang basic premise. So I joined an NGO in the entire term of President Cory. And unfortunately, I haven't gotten out of NGO work. Up to today, I am still with NGO work. So ayun nga, yung pagpunta mo doon, so I work for an NGO called Sariling Sikap Incorporated. And we were helping farmers, fisher folks, like Kadodoy, urban poor communities. And I was able to go as far north as Abra to as far south as Davao Oriental during that time, no? And doon talagang mas nakita mo, that's where you begin to see the brokenness talaga of the world, no? And how things have become so messed up. And of course, that was as a consequence, of course, of history, and the more immediate time at that time was, of course, the dictatorship, no? And how poverty has sort of really broadened and widened. And what do you do now? No? So, a lot of exposure on community organizing, a lot of exposure on cooperative development. So, dun kami medyo umikot. No? And then at that time, 1992 was the end of the term of President Cory. In 1993, a year after, I was also deciding whether I would continue doing NGO work, because I got married in 1989, and my wife had our first baby in 1991. And in 1991, sabi ko, kaya ko pa ba ng pamilya to support the family with NGO wages, no? By the way, my first salary was 1,500 pesos a month. That was, ganun katagal na yon, Tito Leps. So anyway, kaya ko bang suportahan yung pamilya ko for ano? So I was in transition around that time, 91, 92, 93. In 1993, I was talking to some friends and really exploring other things, probably go to the family business or get into a corporate job, when I found out that my aunt was looking for somebody to help her in reviving the Aquino Foundation. And yung isang kausap niya, I think it was Ping Desus, former Secretary Ping Desus. And former Secretary Ping Desus being recruited by a private company at that time, I think it was PLDT, to do the zero backlog. Yung mga medyo kaedad ko dito, zero backlog, alam niyo yan, di ba? Yung connecting landlines to the homes. Wala pang cellphone. Just to connect everyone with landlines. So, he was being recruited for that. And then eventually, what happened was, Secretary Ping Desus, we know, I was talking to people, and sabi niya, we know that one of your nephews is actually an NGO person. And long story short, my aunt called me, sabi niya, nasa NGO ka pala. Tikori, mula nung umupo ka, nasa NGO ko. Ano plano mo? Sabi ko, actually, wala pa. Pero yung nga, sabi ko nga, she knows my circumstances, and I felt I needed to. Sabi niya, sige. Then a few weeks after, I get a call. One of the business friends of my aunt said, punta ka dito sa office ko. So nagpunta ako. And eventually, they agreed, okay, you work for your aunt, and I'll take care of my financial needs. Or hindi naman sobrang dami, pero at least enough a little higher than the usual NGO wages, no, that allows me to actually start my family life. And of course, my wife at that time was working for Cathay Pacific. She was earning 10 times what I was getting in my NGO work. So in a way, we made it possible. So long story short, again, I ended up working for her from 1993 all the way up to the time she passed on in 2009. And 2009, when she passed on, sabi ko, oh, what next? And of course, working for her, di ba? Working for her really just opened the doors. It broadened the network that actually I started to develop. I worked with politicians, worked with businessmen. Yeah, and that's when I sort of got around to meet many people and many people who are doing great things, no? And when she passed on, syempre ang tanong, oh, what next? What next, no? And again, walang kaplano-plano talaga tong buhay na to. Eventually, when she passed on and hindi pa umaabot yung 40 days, there was a lot of talk na about Pinoy running for office. And of course, medyo ayaw na namin pakinggan yon during the time kasi talagang back of our mind, sabi na, what more do we ask from this family? How much more sacrifice should we ask from this family? So medyo denial kami na Noy would still run for office. Long story short, di ba, we know, Noy ran and eventually won. Ayan, yung mga kasama nyo dito, yan, si Manny, si Alton, si Dr. Ophel, ayan ang mga urig na volunteers ng. Kaya I think nakaugat dito yung yellow boat, di ba? Kaya yellow yung boat na yan. Eventually led to what they're doing now, no? And I guess really the whole thing with Pinoy also when he became president, another door opened to me. And I was called one day I get a call from Manny Pangilinan and said, "What are you doing?" Sabi ko, "Well, still really searching because my aunt just passed away and Pinoy just got elected. I was really trying to find my way pa." And sabi niya, are you open to become executive director of PBSP, of Philippine Business Social Progress? So that's when I got into PBSP. For those of you who know that I was once upon a time PBSP. And that was 2010 to 2016. So the whole time, in 2010, 2016, the whole idea of building democracy, poverty alleviation, I had a very huge platform in PBSP, where the board are actually the top CEOs of this country, as well CEOs of the conglomerates, as well as the multinationals that are present in the country. So really big stage to actually do poverty alleviation. Twists and turns. 2010, towards the end of 2010, she decides, si Pinoy calls me and says, tawagan mo si Leni Robredo at kailangan ng tulong sa kanyang pangangampanya sa Vice President. Because, di ba, if you remember, last minute din na dinesisyon si Leni Robredo. So alam mo, this twist and turn. So suddenly sabi ko, sige, I was still PBSP, at least I was properly, gainfully employed, supporting now, at that time, about already three kids already. So sabi ko, sige, I will help. Met Leni Robredo, long story short, nanalo sa pagka-VP. And nung nanalo sa pagka-VP, prior to her being sworn in, she calls me, sabi niya, can you help me? Can you work for me? Or can you help me in the OVP? Sabi ko, sure, ma'am. I mean, no question naman yan. Sabi niya, pwede ba full-time? Di ba? Ayan, doon kami nagkakilala ni Salve. Pwede ba full-time? Sabi ko, full-time? Ano ibig sabihin? As in full-time. Okay. So question is, do I give up PBSP? Do I pivot and say, sige, balik gobyerno? And of course, alam naman natin, sa gobyerno, masyadong sahod. Pero hindi na bale. So anyway, long story short, because kinakapos na ako ng oras, I said, okay, yes, ma'am. So I resigned from PBSP and I worked as a senior advisor to the Office of the Vice President during her time. And ayun, doon kami nagkatrabaho ni Salve a lot of times. And then, in the work that I was doing really just doing work behind Cory Aquino, behind Pinoy, behind Leni Robredo, I always ask myself, what did I do in this life to give me this gift of having to work with this very inspiring. Ano bang nagawa ko mabuti dito sa buhay ko? Wala naman akong kaplano-plano dito sa mga ginagawa ko. But again, I mean, the pattern was, the pattern of things happening in my life was nothing planned. It was just falling into place as I went through this thing. And I always wonder what could it be, what could it have been? And I think it links a lot to what Josh was also mentioning earlier, being loyal and being faithful to the mission. being faithful to the purpose. I mean, you started with the idea if you want to give back, and if you stay there, things were gonna fall in place. You went from a small NGO to a Cory Aquino platform to a PBSP platform, and Office of the Vice President platform. The opportunity to really just broaden, a platform where you can actually do what you initially thought was important in giving hope. And of course, Lenny Robredo decides to run for the presidency. Of course, we all know that didn't work out. So wala na naman akong trabaho. Wala na naman akong trabaho. Of course, my friends in the NGO were always very supportive and also knew stuff that I could do. So they invited me to become president of this NGO called Restart Me Incorporated, which is a smaller NGO that actually supports microfinance institutions in the country to help clients that actually get affected by natural calamities, to help them recover from natural calamities. So we were managing a wholesale loan that we actually lent to micro-entrepreneurs pagka tinamaan sila ng kalamidad, etc. This is where I found Mary Grace Haragon. Di ba my second phase of my journey was the idea of finding hope. What was very interesting in this story that I just want to share. So, the mode was we want to help refinance livelihood of nanays that actually have difficulties. No? So, pumunta kami, kasama ko pa dito si Aika. Aika was working with me in that Restart Me organization. So, we went to Northern Samar to actually meet some of these nanays that were being assisted by an MFI that we were working with, yung SCPI. So, inintroduce kami dito, si Mary Grace, ilagay ko self-appointed nanay. Why? Because wala naman siyang asawa. Pero, inampun niya yung anak ng mga kapatid niya na namatay. The sister who passed away. So, she adopted 3 of the kids. When we were interviewing her here, we found out actually that her situation was, she has this small karinderya or small food business, and this was beside a school in Northern Samar. Nung tinanong, kamusta ka na? Sabi niya, ito, struggling pa rin, sumusubok pa rin bumangon. Pero kasi grabe ho yung tama sa akin nung pandemya. When the pandemic happened, the market, which is the schools, na mga batang kumakain doon sa kainan nila, syempre nawala, di ba? At nung nawala, suddenly, her livelihood really just went in shambles. No? So, nung kinakausap ko siya, sabi ko, paano? Hindi na, sige lang, unti-unti namang bumabalik. Tapos sabi ko, kamusta? Sino pa hubang kasama mo dito? Then we discover that other than the three kids that she adopted from her sister who died, she also took care of her dad, who actually also suffered a stroke and needed some kind of medical assistance hanggang namatay na eventually yung tatay niya. And then in the corner, I saw a man, and sabi niya, tsaka yung kapatid ko, mas matanda po sa akin yan, tinamaan din po ng stroke yan. At sinusuportahan ko din po yung kapatid kong yan. So you can see, nung kinukwento niya yung sabi ko, Sabi ko, inadapt mo yung 3 bata, ikaw nag-alaga sa tatay mo nung na-stroke, ikaw pa nag-aalaga sa kapatid mo na nag-stroke ngayon. Tapos yung kahuli-hulihan, sabi niya, nga, yung kapatid nga nung 3 yun, yung panganay na lalaki, nung isang araw nga, na-aksidente pa sa motorsiklo. Ako na naman ang gumastos doon sa So sabi ko, how can this woman continue to push on and even have that very happy disposition while we were talking? How can she, in spite of everything that's happening to her life, continue to push? And that's when I realized, sabi ko, it is when you meet people like this that you now find hope. It was not me giving her hope. It was not me anymore coming here. Alam mo, may papahiram akong pera para makabangon yung negosyo mo. Pero wala pa yung pera, hindi ko pa binibigay, ganyan na mag-isip Na ang linaw-linaw sa buhay niya, na kailangan kong bigyan ng pag-asa ang ibang tao na binahagi sa akin ng Diyos. And when you meet people like this, then you find hope. Then suddenly the whole conversation changes. So I met this old guy. He's older than me, di ba? It's obvious naman, di ba? His name's Father Greg Boyle. He was here. We were lucky to have him here in Ateneo. He gave a talk. He's the founder of Homeboy Industries. He's a Jesuit based in Los Angeles. And his program is actually working with the gangs of LA. Yung mga, di ba, may Latinos dyan, may blacks, etc. So all of the deviants, so to speak, of Los Angeles, siya ang you look him up. He has a lot of Facebook, he has a lot of YouTube talks, but look him up. He's a very inspiring guy. And in the talk, he mentioned this, and I immediately picked it up because it sort of summed up the whole idea of finding hope. Sinabi na, we do not go to the margins to make a difference because then that it's about me. We go to the margins so that the folks there make me different than it is about us. Kayo ba, di ba, naramdaman nyo ba yun? Yung pagdating nyo doon, as meron kayo nakitang tao na mas hirap sa pinagdadaanan mo, pero mas buong-buo yung pag-asa sa kanya. Sino ka para magreklamo na hirap ang buhay mo? Sino ka para mawalaan ng pag-asa? Mary Grace made me different. And I think there were countless more people that I encountered in my life. Iba di ba? So, from the idea of ikaw yung nakapag-aral, mas marami kang biyayang natanggap na dapat ibahagi mo ito, ibigay mo ito. Tama siya eh. When it's about making a difference, it's about me. Ego yan eh. Di ba? Ang galing-galing ko. Ang dami kong nabigay, ang dami kong tinutulungan. Ego yan eh. Of course, maganda yung intensyon, di ba? Pero in the end, I had to examine that eh. Oo nga, no? Di ba? Parang ang sarap marinig sa mga kaibigan, ang galing-galing mo naman. Ang dami mong nagagawa. Everybody's tapping your back. Pero pag nakilala mo yung Mary Grace, yung mga ganyang klaseng tao, nakakapanliit eh. Di ba? Nakakapanliit. So, the next challenge is how do you sustain that? Di ba? How do you sustain hope? And for me nga, giving and finding hope is only possible with empathy. And this is where I want to go and deal with empathy a little bit more now. So where do I find myself now? As Salve said, I find myself now in ASA Philippines Foundation. And again, I was an original founder way back in 2004. But just last year, I was asked to come back to become its president and CEO because nagkaroon sila ng leadership changes and the board called me to find out, are you open to become President CEO of ASA Philippines Foundation. Alam mo, this happened in November. I was called sometime late October. At this stage in my life, kasi medyo namimili na lang ako ano yung gusto kong gawin. Yung ganun ba yung medyo, yung senior citizen, mura na ang gamot, mura discount sa restaurant. Pero at saka yung I felt it was time for me to give some time for my kids. My kids are now adults. I mean, they're very adults. They're really transitioning to a life of independence. My eldest is 33, tama ba? Math ko. My second is turning 32 this year, and my youngest is 25. So medyo nando sila sa time that they have to also make their own choices and decisions of what they want to do with my life. And I felt, 40 years of work, in development work, 40 years of, doing stuff. Sabi ko, maybe it's time to slow down a bit, spend some time with my kids, and also probably spend some time with my wife, who's now upcoming artist. Sabi ko, sige, magpinta ka na lang ng puminta para pagka kumita ka, hindi kita na kailangan supportan at ako na susuportahan mo. Anyway, so I was at that stage in my life. So sometime in October, then of course I'm doing Still Restart Me, and then I'm also helping VP Lenny with Angat Buhay. Pero these are very part-time work eh. So November came and sabi, can you take over? And ASA is no joke. ASA is a 20-year-old organization. It reaches 2.2 million nanays, where we provide micro lending and also manage micro savings from this 2.2 million. It had a portfolio when I came in. It had a loan portfolio of 42 billion across the country. It's not small. So when I was asked if I could take over this organization, sabi ko, by the way, 12,000 employees. So I was asking myself, gusto ko pa ba ito? Gagawin ko pa ba ito? And it took some time, sabi ko, kasi of course it was the family of Ambassador Howard Yu also asked if I could help. And how can you say no to the last will of Ambassador Yu? And in fact, he passed away just last year. And one of the things he said was, I want ASA to continue doing a lot of good work for our people. And doon sa ganong konteksto, sabi ko, sige, tanggapin ko na. Not really knowing and understanding the size and the gravity of this thing. So I accepted. In November 8, I came in as a Philippines president. And the first thing I did was to actually go and visit the branches and visit the nanays. This particular picture was in Marawi. I was on my third week in ASA when I decided to go and visit Marawi, to talk to the nanays in Marawi. And find out, ano ba? Kamusta ang buhay? Anong nangyayari? And then, the Mary Graces of this world suddenly multiplies. You suddenly realize that there's so much more that people who actually give so much of their lives, not to change the world, but to give hope for their families, to give hope to other people. Yung mga nanay, yung mga kwento, siya ang nagpapaaral na sa apo niya kasi iniwan na nung anak niya, kasi nagkahiwalay na sila. Ako ang nag-aalaga sa tatay ko dahil namatay na si nanay. You know, all of these many different stories of people trying to help each other, trying to be present for each other, to actually give hope. You look at the poverty situation in the country, nakakalula di ba? I'm 62, and I know in my lifetime, I'm not gonna see the day that this poverty is gonna be solved. I'm not even gonna see the day that it's gonna be significantly solved. And why hope? Because now you see people that in spite of their circumstances, despite the cards that have been dealt with, they continue to push and they continue to hope. So what's empathy? Somebody forwarded this to me actually just a couple of days ago. It's a quote from Judge Frank Caprio. I don't know if you watch this guy. He's also in YouTube. He's this courtroom judge that actually tries yung mga traffic violations, and nakakatawa yung mga cases na hinahandle niya. And you can see that empathy really comes out of his system. And one of the things he said, and I think it sums it all up, that empathy is seeing with the eyes of another, listening with their ears, and feeling with their heart. Whenever I go now to our communities in ASA, I always remind myself to be this. And as I said earlier, di ba, I'm still trying to learn how to do this well. Kasi minsan bumabalik pa rin yung I'm the giver. Bumabalik yung ego di ba? I mean, we're human. That's why I always need to remind myself that when I go there, I need to listen carefully. I need to situate myself where they are, what they're going through. And it's only the time that I begin to realize that who I am, what I've done, is nothing compared to what these people are going through. And I think that's the only way we can sustain hope. That if we view things, if we view lives of people around us with much empathy. When I saw those eyes, sabi ko, ayan ang empathy. Yung mata na nilalagay niya yung sitwasyon niya doon sa bata. Yung nilalagay niya yung sitwasyon niya na, paano ko ba, how can I overcome this very psychological trial and challenge of being bullied and being abused in that sense. And then when he discovered na one way that I overcome this psychological mental challenge is singing, instant. Ano yung response ng Pope? Can you sing for me? Can you use your gift that gets you out of your very painful world and to see something much more beautiful? And he asks her to sing. He asks her to dig deep in herself, to find what is good in me, what gift has been given me. Because by sharing this gift, I am able to overcome it and probably even give hope to other people. Kaya iba talaga itong papa na ito. Pero pagdasalan pala natin yung mga kardinal natin na kailangan pumili ng tamang papa. But let me end by just highlighting 3 points on my journey of hope. So again, I go back to the 3 sections. So giving hope, I think, is very important because the first step is saying yes to the invitation. Diba? The first step is saying yes to, ayun nga, you see a broken world and you have to say yes or no. And you can choose no, diba? Nobody's forcing anybody to say yes. But the first step is really saying yes to the invitation to serve and to love. And then when you go down, I think it's very important to also have that mindset that it's not just about me giving. We need to be fully present for each other. We need to understand that there are other people that are probably going through much more difficult times than we do, yet they hope. And let's discover that from each other. And the only way we discover that from each other is when we become present to each other, become present for each other. And nga, sustaining hope is that. It's just to be truly present. Whenever you encounter people, whether at work, at home, wherever, it's just being present. Madalas sinisita ako ng asawa ko dahil pag nasa dinner table kami, nasa cellphone ako, oy, ibaba mo muna yan. Okay, be present with each other. And ayun nga, hopefully in the course of being present with each other, we find hope and we continue to pursue hope for everybody. Maraming salamat, magandang umaga sa inyo lahat.
Ayun po, napakaganda po ng talk kasi empathy talaga, dun talaga nagsisimula lahat. Even in design thinking, it starts with empathy. And yung talk niyo po kanina, it reminded me of Father Bienvenido Nebres, who said, we shouldn't be imprisoned by the social class. we belong in. So yung question ko po is, considering po na you were present during the time of critical juncture in Philippine society, were there times po na when you see the turning point, napapareflect din po kayo within yourself? And with that po, is it parang, is it fair to say po na part of the goal is you become as dynamic as the purpose that you serve po?
Ay, nako, yung mga tanong ninyo. Hello. Thank you for your question. Let me just try to understand it a bit. No? So you're saying that that you need to adapt to the situation that you find yourself in. Is that
Yes po, parang reflexive po. You become reflexive.
yeah, you're agile. You're able to to pivot from one course towards another.
Opo.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think definitely. I think we need to, when we begin to understand the situation that we are in, we need to find the best way to do it. No. But I think what's important is and it's going to be much more complicated. Your generation probably is going to have more complex life than ours. No. And I always discuss this with my kids. The need to actually adapt, the need to actually adapt to the times and actually thrive in the times is going to be a continuing struggle, not only for yourself, but even people like us. We do that because you have to know, di ba? And when certain things change, suddenly you experience new limits, new constraints. So how do you overcome those? How do you do that? And syempre, you need to understand hanggang saan mo lang din kaya gawin, di ba? And I think it's very important to be honest with yourself on that. Like, as you can see, my life spans all the way from the dictatorship of Marcos Sr. to democracy of Cory Aquino, to FVR to Erap Estrada to Gloria Macapagal. And this whole history of this country, at least in the time that I am alive, and daming changes. At saka, one time we're below, we're not in position of quote-unquote power, position of influence, and another day we're not. And like now we're not. But what do you do? I mean, do you quit? Do you stop? I think that's where it's important to really know what limits you can do and just move on and just move forward. It's very important also not to dwell on setbacks. And again, this is so real in this time, especially after, a Leni Robredo candidacy that suddenly didn't happen. And of course, I was very much part of that. And when that happened, and you really begin to look back, oh my God, I'm now in the twilight of my life. And ano na ba nangyari dito sa bayan na to? Yung mga issue ngayon dito sa bayan na to, pareho ng issue na pinaglaban ko in the 1980s. And when you begin to if I stay there in the whole idea na 4 na dekada ng buhay ko ginawa ko para palitan itong bayan na ito, and I'm about to leave this world realizing that what I've done actually baka hindi naman mapakinabangan or hindi napakinabangan. But if you dwell on that, hindi ka gagalaw di ba? You're gonna stop. But what's very, very liberating for me is the idea that, okay, nangyari na yan, buhay pa ako, I still have the gifts that have been given me. What can I do now? And then you're given an opportunity like Asa Philippines Foundation. Hey, I might not change the world, but I could probably be part of the change that happens to 2.2 million families where Asa is reached, and probably it's gonna change me, as I said. And maybe when I leave this world, I hope I'm a better person than when I entered it. Maraming salamat. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you po, yes po.
Good afternoon, sir. I'd like to ask, based on your what you've taught us about empathy but first empathy and hope, what is your hope for the future?
Definitely, you want to see a better world where inequality is not anymore the norm. I want to see a world that's actually where people, are more kind, more loving, rather than what we have right now. And I'm very clear that I'm not going to see that. No, but yeah, I mean that's the hope. That's the hope, and that continues to be the hope. And I think I just don't make it myself to be. I just don't get preoccupied about the idea that I should be a big part of that future change. That I am a part of that, but not necessarily have to be the main. Again, kasi if I have to be the main, ego na naman yan eh. It's about me again eh. Di ba? But when we think of a future and we decide of a better future, I think it's very clear that this better future is not going to happen only because one person is able to change it. For crying out loud, Christ tried to do it. Di ba? He left at a very young age and we still continue to sin today. So am I going to have that illusion that I'm going to change the world? Probably not anymore, but I'll do my part. I'll do my own little thing. And hopefully, as you also often say, I'm going to change it one boat at a time. Let's do our part. I mean, we are given situations and opportunities to do our part. And let's just do it well. Let's just do it well. I'll share you a very nice quote. It's in my favorites page. This is a prayer. This is the prayer of I don't know if you came across. It's a prayer of Bishop Oscar Romero, Latin American bishop, who was recently canonized as a saint. And this is a prayer that stuck with me and that has been with me and continues to be with me. No? So let me just read it. Hopefully I can end with this. It helps now and then to step back and take a long view. The kingdom is not only beyond our efforts, it is even beyond our vision. We accomplish in our lifetime only a tiny fraction of the magnificent enterprise that's God's work. Nothing we do is complete, which is a way of saying that the kingdom always lies beyond you, beyond us. No statement says all that could be said. No prayer fully expresses our faith. No confession brings perfection. No pastoral visit brings wholeness. No program accomplishes the church's mission. No set of goals and objectives includes everything. And that is what we are about. We plant the seeds that one day will grow. We water seeds already planted, knowing that they hold future promise. We lay foundations that we all need for further development. We provide yeast that produces far beyond the capabilities. We cannot do everything, and there is a sense of liberation in realizing that. This enables us to do something and do it very well. It may be incomplete, but it is a beginning and a step along the way. An opportunity for the Lord's grace to enter and to do the rest. We may never see the end results, but that is the difference between the master builder and the worker. We are workers and not master builders. Ministers, not messiahs. We are prophets of a future not our own. Thank you very much.